So a few words about Friends of eBay. As part of eBay's commitment to support continued innovation and entrepreneurship in New York City, Friends of eBay have an accelerator which takes in 10 early stage startups, primarily in fashion tech, ad tech, big data, and ML, focused on technical development for their 5-month accelerator program. As a matter of fact, they are now helping their startups prep for a pitch competition. So they offer free office space, mentorship, access to the eBay network of investors and leaders in the industry, and an opportunity to work alongside some of the brightest minds in the field. The next batch begins early 2018 and is going to be focused on fashion tech.
How did you make your decision to become an entrepreneur? What sparked where you said, that's it, I'm going to be starting my own company? So what sparked for you?
It was my midlife crisis. And I don't mean that, I'm not joking. What I really realized was that I had put everybody else's in my family sort of priorities ahead of my dreams. And I had taken a lot of corporate mommy trap jobs to support raising 4 kids with my now ex-husband, so there is a part of the story. And it really became clear to me that I just needed to live a life that mattered. And I feel like part of me being a startup entrepreneur is not about what I do. It's what I'm trying to be the change I want to see. So it's really about being the kind of company I always wish that I could have worked for. And I like to say I was a sailor for many years, that a boat in the harbor is safe, but that's not what it was made for. And I literally woke up and was like, it was undeniable that I was, this was something that I could do, that I had held back on, and it was truly my dream. And so I didn't buy a sports car, I started a company.
That's fantastic. Larry, could you answer that?
Sure. Before I do, I have to say, we have so many monitors here, and none of them have the Yankee game on.
I know.
It's just not right, but they're winning 2-0. But anyway.
Well, thanks
I got a little push on mine. I've been 30 years in corporate America, and some new management came in and decided they needed their own people. Maybe some of you have gone through that. Certainly that was my experience. And out of that, I said, you know what? Same kind of thing. I don't want to go back and do the same thing. Tired of downsizing, laying people off. I want to build something. And so what would that be? And that really led me down the path of deciding I needed to do my own thing, and the company is a result of that.
Fantastic. Sharon?
Well, I tell the story at open houses with parents about the story of how I came to start a school, and what I tell them is it actually started way before I was a parent, when I was, as a business person, traveling in China back in the 90s, and there weren't that many people that spoke English, and I got into a taxi cab, and of course the taxi driver started speaking to me in Chinese, and this sort of feeling of regret came over me about the fact that I was not bilingual and could not speak to him in Chinese. I thought there's got to be a better way. And then it wasn't until I had children and I was pregnant with twins, actually commuting into New York, and I started reading the research all about immersion and the advantages for children, that and thinking about how was I going to be able to manage working with twins, going to the city, and it was easy to contemplate starting, not so easy to convince my husband to quit my job and start a school. But anyway, that was the impetus for deciding to start.
That's fantastic. Sally?
Well, I felt absolutely born to be a magazine editor. And I rose in the ranks and I became the editor-in-chief of McCall's magazine, which some of you might remember. And then one day I was replaced by Rosie O'Donnell. So that worked out about as well as you're imagining. And I was kicked upstairs and I was kept around for 7 or 8 months, and then I was ousted. And I moved into another really terrific job creating a magazine based on Lifetime television. which was Have a Great Moment, and my bosses were the Hearst Corporation as well as Disney, and that went really well until they decided to replace me to corporate speak for go in another direction, which is like, get out of here. So the first time when I was let go, I was the world's best fired person. I did everything we were supposed to do, and that's how I got the second job. But the second time, I just was so pissed off and depressed, and the magazines around were all celebrity-oriented. It was all about the Kardashians at that moment, and I thought, I haven't worked this long, this hard to write about the Kardashians. So a friend suggested that I take up one of my hobbies, and I realized I had no hobbies. I had raised 2 children. The youngest was graduated from college, and I had a 24/7 job as an editor of a magazine. So I went right to my comfort zone, and I enrolled myself in a writing workshop, and just for fun, I started writing what turned out to be my first book. And I looked for magazine jobs during that period of time, but I looked with less enthusiasm as time went by. I realized I had never written a word of fiction. I always had been a journalist, but I realized I had untapped talent. So that's how I became an author.
It's fantastic variety. I'm going to pass this off to Carlos.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Sally. Do you miss working in a large corporate environment?
Oh yes, I worked for I worked for Condé Nast, for Hearst, for the New York Times Company. These are as large and corporate as they come in terms of the magazine world.
What about you, Larry?
I don't know that I miss the corporate world. I mean, there's certainly some security that's there, right? Some safety net. And looking back now, 5 years later, it's the people that I miss more than anything else. One of the things I found that I wasted so much time in meetings that were pointless. You had to have 5 people, 6 people, 7 people in a meeting. You get so much done without it. So that's one of the positives of not being in there.
That's great. And so Sharon, is it something like you miss that too, or not at all?
Well, one of my jobs was a director of International Nabisco, and I got to travel first class all around the world, and I really enjoyed that. I hadn't stepped in a first class cabin since I left the corporate world. I also miss, what I do miss is the camaraderie, the caliber of people that I was privileged to work with. And not that I don't work with wonderful people now, but I had mentors and people that I could learn from. And now most of the people that I work with are younger and people that look up to me. So that's a change.
That's awesome. So Susan, as a fellow entrepreneur, I do feel how will you feel when you have to do everything from scratch to the very end of selling and contacting company. How hard has it been for you?
Depends on the day. There's the thing about entrepreneurship is that it's like a bike when you're first learning. You're 4 years old and you're learning to bike. You're learning to pedal. It's just so hard to get the momentum so that you can take the wobble out of the ride. But I guess I would say that I had held a variety of functional positions in my prior career, and so I've been in finance, I've been in business development, mostly around finance, business development, strategy, and product marketing. So that at least makes me have 4 functional areas in my company that I have like a little bit of domain knowledge in, and then there's just other areas that I had no domain knowledge in whatsoever. So we sell these shovel tools, and all of the logistics and production planning and order management and inventory planning is all brand spanking new. So there's days that it really is hard because I'm just learning that stuff from scratch.
What's the transition like when you started writing your books from when you went from corporate? I mean, I'm thinking, because there's such a big variety on this, from organizing your day to, and it's interesting too, as far as talking about mentoring, as far as if you have mentors, or if it's one of those things where it's just, you know, you're just jumping in there and learning as you go. But I think specifically as far as time management, because when you go from a corporate setup and then working on your own company, it's such a huge shift.
It is a huge shift.
And how that works for you.
Well, one of the wonderful things about having trained and led trained on led magazines is that I was very disciplined. I was used to meeting deadlines, so that my happy place was behind a computer. So I just mimicked that at home and got myself behind a computer early in the morning, and that's still my routine. But there were aspects of corporate life that I really feel nostalgic about, because I worked with a fabulous team of really smart, lively, fun people, and I had to find a way to not be isolated, because that would have been just deadly. Now, I happen to live in Manhattan, so it's probably far easier to create a sort of new social life for yourself based on meeting people for coffee and so on, than it might be if I lived in, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, let's say, if I lived there. But I had to work at it. I had to work at not being isolated, and, you know, become aware of that and find new, I didn't want to just hang out with all my old friends because it sort of bummed me out. So I have a tremendous circle now of other people who are writers, who I didn't know when I started out.
It's fantastic. And what worked for you as far as, especially starting a school? I mean, that's such massive amounts of planning. We were talking about that a little bit, which is making the shift, laying the groundwork, how long that took to really launch your projects. It's not something you do overnight. Oh, I'm just going to start school.
Yeah. You know, I was explaining to Kathy that actually when I started this, there were very, very few schools like the one I was envisioning, a Mandarin immersion school in the United States. In fact, I could probably count on two hands the number. So I took the time to visit a number of schools, talk to those people that had started a school. One person really was trying to persuade me not to do it. You can tell I didn't listen. But, you know, doing a lot of that research, I think, but then you really, there's no amount of research that can prepare you, and then you just kind of start. I actually started in the basement of my home. So I started on a very small scale. I didn't hire a lot of people. In fact, the very first hire was a teacher, and I was her assistant. And we had 5 kids. So I really was like a pilot. And I really went very slowly and just was trying to test and validate, would people pay for this and would it work? And then we started getting some traction. So I would say, you know, from a scheduling transition, you know, from corporate, very, very different, but I think corporate brings you the skills to figure out how to go about planning, but I would not say that I have a full business plan written out, because you really don't even know enough to write a full business plan at that point. You're just trying to take it a step at a time.
I think it's great about testing the concept a bit. How many years from when you started with testing to where you are now? How long have you been
Well, I've been doing this for 12 years.
12 years, good for you. Larry, I want to jump to you specifically with your business when you pivoted and started your entrepreneurial journey, because you have to deal with a lot of legislative and legal issues. We were talking about this. And if you could address that as far as people that are starting a business where they're going to be dealing with a lot of rules and laws and legislation that they need to be aware of in starting their company.
Sure.
And suggestions about that?
Sure. So our business is data analytics, and you know, we don't have to look very far beyond the headlines of the newspaper and things like Equifax and how that's in the market. Companies are very leery about that. So you really have to be on top of all the various rules about data privacy. If If you get into healthcare, you've got HIPAA that you have to be aware of, and so whether you're a big company or a small company, you've got to really get geared up for that. So really understanding where to get it and how to get it, and make sure your company is following those procedures is critical. Beyond that, I would say, and I don't know about the rest of you, but the regulatory environment in this country is just hard. I mean, we're a New Jersey company, we were doing business in New York, so automatically you got to file 2 tax returns. Then you've got our first employee lived in North Carolina, so all of a sudden we're filing in North Carolina. That's with a 3-person company. And then you start having people in Pennsylvania, and it's just out of control. You have to really get people in. You can't possibly do it yourself, and you're going to become a full-time HR or legal person. And so really getting the right skills, the people who have that knowledge, keeps you out of trouble. And it's just, you literally can make that be a full-time job if you're not careful.
So it's good as far as getting the right people with the right skill set.
And there's a lot of companies out there, so for example, not to make a plug for any company, but there's PEO organizations that'll help you like with the HR aspects, with the right payroll filing, so you don't even have to worry about that. You can certainly you want to get a good attorney who can write up good contracts. We do B2B, so we're dealing with big global banks, insurance companies, telecom companies, etc. And if you're not careful about who owns the intellectual property, who has the limits of liability, what are those limits of liability and everything, you can really get yourself in trouble. So really take the time to get that right.
Thank you so much. Susan, I was really curious for you, with the shovels, where did that come from? Were you like the outdoorsy woman, like I just love to go snowboarding, or I just love to shovel snow? I mean, how did that come about?
Okay, so, yeah, I get that question all the time.
Do you? Because I got looked at the website. The website is super cool. And also, when you talk about it a little bit, because you're obviously very engaged with your user, if you could talk about that, you should check our website out. It's really cool.
Yeah, so the company is called Demos Collective, and we make active tools. And it is true that almost all of our customers are guys, and I'm a woman. And so it is definitely an observation that a lot of people have around how the heck I'm making tools. It's a very guy business. But I am that woman who is pretty extreme. You'd classify me as more than a weekend warrior. I've been a competitive sailor. I have raced mountain bikes. I have raced and won snowboarding, banked slalom races. I climbed mountains. I live in Jacksonville, Wyoming, and I did that by choice. And it was during about a 20-year period where I was an owner of a sailboat that I bought. I like to joke with people, I bought everything at West Marine at least 3 times. But I really developed a very strong appreciation for beautifully made things. A lot of things in the nautical world are just incredibly strong, beautifully designed. And I'm a consumer person for sure. So if you put all that together, you kind of realize I ended up in Wyoming where I could pursue my active pursuits and had a very strong consumer orientation and love beautifully designed things. And my kid is a kid that broke every tool that was in our garage. Because our basic thesis is that lawn and garden tools aren't what they used to be. 100 years ago, tools were handed down from generation to generation. And now they're just dumbed down versions. Plastic snow shovels and, just really basic stuff that breaks. So Demos was born out of an observation that my son was building tools that were not up to task. And so it was from that we just launched a single product and sort of from there the business plan came about. So I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely, thank you.
Where do you get funding to start? So you have the idea, suddenly you said, well, I like to start this. How do you get funding?
Well, now we're looking for additional capital because starting a school, it's very capital intensive, but starting out actually was my husband and I, our own resources. So we, for the past 12 years, haven't raised any outside money. So it's inheritance, savings.
So you're willing
So
to raise
yeah,
money now?
and we rented. We tried to really conserve cash. So renting space in a church, and then when we moved and started up a school in New York. That's where the big, the renovation costs, because someday, in a second life, I'd like to be a landlord in New York City. So anyway, so renting and renovating is quite expensive. So that was a lot of where the money that we had to pull from our savings went.
So how much money you want to raise? Can you say?
So right now, we're looking to raise about $3 million.
Great. So Sally, for you, the transition of being in the corporate world and having your own business, how do you find yourself in terms of funding? You invest your own money, the transition?
Well, I'll be
Again.
completely honest. I don't think that I would have tried to write my first book if I hadn't had a contract that was still ticking away.
So a contract.
And so I was being paid for about a year and a half. It was the first time in my life I ever had a contract. Oh, sorry. It's a secret. I had a contract. I was still being paid for about a year and a half, and that really made a huge difference because I'm an extremely practical Midwestern woman. I never would have done anything so crazy as to like have gone and gotten an MFA right after a bachelor's degree and tried to write a novel. But I would suggest other people trying to do what I did to do it while they're still working, and plenty of people do. It's rather the far more common way to do it, actually.
So Susan, for you, transition in terms of building this beautiful shovel, how did it go about raising money, investing your own money, you get outside help, you want to raise money? How is the situation now?
Yeah, so I'm in a space where we're a manufacturer, and that means that we have significant marketing and product development and design and engineering costs, as well as we have to fund our inventory. So most consumer products companies like mine, you gotta have some paid in equity. You just can't start on a shoestring. It takes quite a bit of capital. So I was able to, from my prior exits in some tech companies, have some savings that I invested in real estate, and then I sold that real estate in order to do the additional funding for my company. And then about a year in, I began to fundraise. And I'm sitting in front of you as a grateful entrepreneur, because it is extraordinary to tell you that I closed outside capital. And just getting that done is probably one of the greatest accomplishments of my career. It's very difficult. I never raised money before. We are in the middle of doing a Series A right now, and the way I have gone about fundraising has changed so significantly I almost don't even recognize myself. So it's exciting. I told someone before the conference, we started talking, that when I first went out to fundraise, I used to think I was fundraising for a shovel. Then I thought it was fundraising for a shovel company. Then I thought it was fundraising for a garage disruptor in the hard goods space, which sounds pretty exciting. So that's what I thought it was. But you know what it's really about? It's really about investing in me. It took me a long time to figure that out. So happy to talk more about that, but fundraising is a whole other topic, and it's one that definitely merits a longer discussion, but definitely has been a big part of my journey.
Have you tried crowdsourcing?
Yes, so we completed 2 Kickstarter campaigns. You all know that's probably product crowdsourcing. That's not equity crowdfunding. I have talked to the equity crowdfunding platforms, but since we manufacture a consumer product, I don't need to give away equity. I can pull forward my next crowdfunding campaign, so we're probably going to launch a campaign on December 1, and we're getting really good at it, and drive 400,000 in pre-sales, and that really helps pay the bills for quite a while. So we tend to do product crowdfunding like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and not equity campaigns.
So Larry, you probably had some contacts previously in your corporate world before you started your business, or you got outside funding yourself?
We started on our own, so our own capital. We started as a consulting firm, so there's a little less in terms of needs there, although most companies, especially who deal with B2B, they pay 100 days after you complete the work. So you've got to fund your salaries and benefits and everything for that period of time, so there is some need there. But like some of you, we just recently decided that we need to seek outside funding. Not for consulting, but because we're developing a couple of software products one in the marketing space and one in insurance. And so we're starting with friends and family and angel raise. Right now, we're in the midst of it. We're about halfway through in terms of the target, and then we expect to do Series A sometime next year, perhaps early 2019.
How much money?
Well, we're starting in the friends and family and angel to raise between 600 and $1 million to do a variety of things, set up a presence in India, provide some working capital, finish our product build, and then get a couple of beta clients out there and get our next product, and then go for Series A once we have the couple of beta clients out there.
Awesome. I will ask you a question later about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to start with Sally. You're going to love this. What happened that you totally never expected to happen as an entrepreneur?
I never expected to write 6 books. I thought I would write 1 book and then I'd go back and do what I used to do. But I liked it. I discovered I was good at it. And I wanted to try to do it again. And it was fortunate that I did, because the industry that I used to be in is imploding. I'm sure that you may have heard that many editors since the first of the month have announced that they're leaving, because the whole model of putting out traditional print magazines is changing for reasons we'll never even have enough time to get into, and I won't bore you with them. So that I'm sort of an accidental entrepreneur, but a happy one.
Sharon.
Well, I'm not sure I knew what to expect, but I think that I thought I would probably be farther along than I really am after 12 years. And what I've come to appreciate is just how long it takes, because as I was explaining, when I first came in, I was really developing the market, and I really thought, wow, you know, there are so many wonderful trends and everybody's going to want this. But it really, really takes some time to build. If you're at the forefront, and I was at the bleeding edge, it really takes time to for people to, you're creating the need, you're selling the category. So a lot of time, and education is something that it takes at least a year or a couple of years for you to see the end result. It's not like you buy a product and you can see how it works.
That's fantastic. Larry, what for you? What's happened in your journey with your own business that you totally didn't expect?
So I'll give you some on the negative and on the positive side.
Absolutely.
So on the negative side, I think much like you just said, it was harder than I would have thought going in. So my partner and I, we're not spring chickens. So we've been around. We've got a lot of contacts. We've got the right contacts. We've been doing this. My partner has been doing consulting for a dozen years. You know, we're going to be able to win. We're going to get some contracts. Well, it took a lot longer. And then the second part was, well, we'll be able to get people to come work with us on this crazy journey. And, well, you know what? We're really comfortable where we are. What we found is people were interested in the idea of being in a startup, but they didn't really want to take the risk of being in a startup. Yeah, we'll come join your startup, but if you guarantee us $200,000 a year, and we want equity. Okay, yeah, well, all right. So that's the end of that conversation. So it was harder, but once the flywheel gets going and we feel like we're kind of there, it makes it a little bit easier, but it was harder to get going. On the positive side, what I found was this great ecosystem of small companies and entrepreneurs out there that as a corporate person I just never really was aware of. And most of them are willing to help. They're willing to give you advice, they're willing to sit down with you, they're willing to perhaps do some bartering, you know, services, etc., to help you get going. So one of the things I would certainly talk about is take advantage of that. The fire trucks are competing with you. Take advantage of that, because they're out there. Most people truly do want to help. They really are interested. They'll take time, and so that was a very pleasant and positive surprise.
It's great, but especially in New York, there's such an abundance of talent. So great. Susan, for you, what would you say happened along your journey that you totally didn't expect?
I totally underestimated how hard it would be to get the people part right. And Larry kind of has alluded to it. I think that I thought that having been an employee, having
having worked for other corporations and even some startups and some other founders, that I had learned the lessons that I needed to learn to be a great employer. And I found that I just completely misjudged people a few times, and enough that it was, we're such a small business that it was so difficult by picking the wrong people at the wrong time. Because the thing is with as an entrepreneur with a small business, you have to pick not just the right people, but it's the right person at the right time, and then you're going to likely outgrow those people. So I think it's just been super surprising how hard that is, and I underestimated that.
This is book 5, novel 4, because I wrote a book. It wasn't a novel called Slouching Toward Adulthood, which was about people in their 20s and 30s who don't have their act together, which in 2009 was news. Now it's just it's just another kid sleeping in the basement. But this particular book of mine, The Widow Waltz, was about a woman who had to figure out a way to support herself after her husband suddenly died and left her in a difficult position.
Are we going to have a raffle at the end, or she's suffering? Sharon, the question that I have for you is, do you consider having partners in your enterprise at any given point?
It's something that we thought a little bit about, but quite frankly, I don't think that we felt that we were, maybe it's me wanting to control. I really wanted to get it to a point where if I was going to bring someone in, I had developed enough of a base, revenue base, enough of a business that then it would make sense. And, I guess it was more that I really wanted 100% control for a long time, I guess is the short answer. But now, as I probably a couple of years ago was when I first started to see that having advisors would have been helpful. Certainly, in retrospect, it's taken longer, and I think that we're close to finding partners now, actually. Probably will happen in the next month or two, finalizing the deal. But, up until then, I've been so much into the business and focused on the next step. And because one thing as an entrepreneur, you spend so much time in the business, not necessarily on the business. So you're not kind of operating at this high enough level to be thinking about all of these things. You're just trying to keep things getting to a point where you've got the right team in place, and you don't have, parents that are upset, and you've got things in a steady state. And probably about a year and a half ago, we were at that place, so then I had the luxury of time to be thinking about the partner and raising money.
So Larry, for you, as I understand, raising money, how important it is to raise money from a VC or for a strategic partner that not only give you the financial support, but also some expertise and know-how in the marketplace? Which are the trade-offs you consider in each case?
So I wouldn't see those things as mutually exclusive. I think one of the reasons you pick a VC is for a lot of what you just talked about. You're not just taking their money. You want to get their expertise, you want their advice, you want their contacts, and that probably ought to be on your list.
Well, venture capital, usually they give you the money and they put your gun in your head. And
That's true too, but we haven't gotten there yet, so I can't speak to that. But some other firms I've been involved with, the VC that they picked was really important.
As a strategic partner as well.
Right, exactly. Not just take the money, but as a strategic partner. Absolutely.
Susan, so you're building shovels. Is it another line in your pipeline that you will seek for investors or strategic investors?
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, you're doing just one product, as I understand, correct?
No, we're going to be building out in the next year, probably 4 to 8 more heads. So we're really taking over the garage. Rakes, brooms, ice scrapers.
Awesome. And this is something you're like self-funding, or you're looking to get some outside funding?
Well, we are doing a Series A, and the Series A actually is not for tooling, it's really for marketing and for patents. We also are patented. The manufacturer that we're working with has an ability to be able to innovate shapes in thermoplastics, metal, glass, and wood without really doing a lot of new tooling. So we design away from doing new tooling. We use the same grips and the same connectors in almost all of our products, and then we just change the shapes of the heads. It's slightly, some of you who are into manufacturing might appreciate that we do not metal stamp that blade. That blade is formed on a brake press. So if you think of that, you can understand that I'm not investing a lot of money in tooling for a specific committed blade shape.
Is there anything you would do differently?
I probably would have written a less fluffy novel for my first novel.
What was your first novel?
My first novel was the one that's up in the board. It's called Little Pink Slips, and it was a sort of social satire in a category that was very popular at the time, known as chick lit, and it was like pulling back the velvet curtains of what it's like to work on a major magazine, and it was a funny. When I was very proud of myself that I wrote a book, that I wrote this well-paced novel with several intermingled plots. But every time I've written a book, I've raised the bar for myself in terms of the literary quality, and my bar is much higher for myself now than it was for that first book. So I think I might have written a different kind of book, because my newest book that's coming out in May is a historical novel about F. Scott Fitzgerald and Sheila Graham, the woman he was involved with at the end of his life. He died in her house, and it was a book that took a tremendous amount of research, and I think the writing's better, but I'm not the same writer now that I was 10 years ago.
So Sharon, you're starting your school today. What would you do differently, if anything? Maybe you'd say, no, everything was fine, I wouldn't do anything differently.
Yeah, well, I think probably a couple things I would do differently. I think that, and it's tough to say, because, looking back, it's you don't really, now you have the hindsight of the situation. Maybe I would have put together a more formal board of advisors sooner. I had people to touch base with, but nothing formal as a group that would have given me sort of the connections and all those things that maybe what we get from the VC. I think also as I'm developing a school that's a service orientation, developing a manual, sort of like if you can imagine a franchise document like a McDonald's would have, really documenting every step. Now, of course, I have them all, in various places on my computer, but it's going to take me quite some time now going back through and trying to piece together every aspect of it, which is what I would need to develop the replicable model. So that, and maybe I would have started the fundraising earlier, but in retrospect, I'm not sure that I frankly really had bandwidth for it, and really the business wasn't in the state that it now is in, that has enabled us to potentially have some interested parties.
Great, thank you so much. Larry, would you do anything different? You're starting today. You left your old corporation, you're starting your new. Anything that you would do differently than you did in the past or not?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So one of the things, we would have taken on another partner. I think even with two of us, it's really hard. Somebody's got to be out selling, somebody's got to be delivering what you sold, and somebody's got to be there figuring out how to hire the next people. And so you need at least, in our business, you need at least 3 people at that senior level. The second thing might seem a little strange. I think we would have taken more risks earlier. We were trying to really be conservative and not hire beyond the projects that we had sold in, and that ended up hampering us, and probably as a result, taking that risk earlier would have had us grow faster, I believe. Whether we would have done funding or not earlier, I'm not sure. But I think our recent experiences, you know, we should have taken more risk. We were a little too cautious.
Great. Susan?
Well, I tend to be a glass half full type person. So it's hard for me to answer that question just because I kind of feel like everything that happened that was bad got me to all the good things that are going on today. So that is probably the entrepreneur in me because it takes that attitude to get up every day and give it all I got. But, you know, specifically, I guess I would say that, you know, no, I mean, it's just so hard because every single setback had to get reframed into, you know, first of all, I had to fix it, and because I had to fix it, I had to learn, and it only made us better. So I do wish all along that I had had a co-founder. I hold all the responsibility, I have all of the sleepless nights, I do all of the fundraising, I do all of the sales, I manage production, and I manage marketing. And it is a lot. I'm a single parent, and I live in Wyoming, and I travel a lot. So, I mean, it's like a lot. But, you know, there wasn't a business partner. And so that's just what it was. That's what it took. So I kind of just, you know, like I said, I just get up every day and I go, you know, I'm so lucky, so grateful to be where I am. Every mistake, you know, I've kind of reframed and learned from and been a little bloody, but boy, doesn't that make me stronger now. And it does.
Can I just say something about that? I didn't mention that my husband joined me in this, so it is, you know, being I can't imagine being a single person not having a partner, but it's my husband and I, so we do get to, and you know, which causes some problems too, because there's always work and every, you know, you're always talking about work all the time, and our personal lives are now work lives, and it's changed our relationship in that way, but hats off to you to be able to manage all of that.
Sharon, if someone here in the audience wants to become a writer, what kind of advice would you give them?
You said Sharon.
I'm sorry.
Oh, well, if you want to become a writer, write. Make it a daily habit. Try to find a writing workshop. There are many, I don't know how many people live in Brooklyn or Manhattan, but they're all over the place. In fact, I'm teaching a small one myself that starts on Sunday. I think there might be a couple of places left Sunday afternoon, 4 Sundays, at the Jewish Community Center in Amsterdam Avenue. But it's something that you also have to read a lot, and you have to read at a quality that enriches you, so that you, hopefully it'll be like a virus that you'll pick up if you read somebody else's well-written material. But the most important thing is to actually sit down and do it.
So Larry, let's say I want to enter your business, what would be your advice to have?
So I'll just take what I did, and that was, don't underestimate the power of networking, and not when you're ready to do it, but before you're ready to do it. So do that, but really understand, my partner and I spent about 6 months figuring out what part of the market to go after. Now, we didn't just sit in our office, but we were out talking to people, testing ideas, and out of that formed that, you know, hey, we're going to go after insurance. There's a lot of verticals. We're in the middle of New Jersey, pharma country, but that was a well-trodden path, so let's go where other people have it. So really do your homework, network, talk to people, really get a good idea of what you need to do. And then stay focused. So make the main thing the main thing. Don't get distracted.
Great. So Sharon, what about you? What would be your advice if someone wants to start a business in your industry?
You know, there are a lot of parents, I would say. I get a lot of questions from parents wanting to start a program. I think it's most important to figure out whether or not you're in a demographic place where it can support this kind of thing. I was saying Mandarin immersion is 1% of schools nationwide, so it's got to be the right pocket. I'll tell you, we had our first school, well, I said I started at my home, but then we moved to a church in Livingston. That's a lot of Chinese population. I thought, well, this would be a good place. Well, as it turns out, it wasn't, because if you're a heritage Chinese family, you're really not going to spend your tuition going to a 5-day-a-week school, because you yourself are a parent who can speak Chinese to your child. Our target market's really an upper middle class family who is well educated, international. Maybe they're not bilingual. They're a business person. They're a Goldman Sachs investment banker. They want their kid to be bilingual. So we moved our school to Summit, and so I think really researching the demographics, and sometimes it's trial and error.
So Susan, I like the three panelists. You are in the consumer products business. So what kind of advice, if I want to start a business in your industry, what kind of advice will you give me?
Don't focus on the company, just bring your product to market on Kickstarter and see how you do. And when you get that feedback from the customer, and if the campaign is funded, then begin to think about, okay, how do we scale this? What's the next product? Most people I meet today start that way in consumer, and they really start their company slowly by testing the product on Kickstarter and getting it funded and then doing it again, and then realizing that they're creating a product line and then becoming a company.
So what keeps you going, what keeps you alive, what keeps it fresh?
Once I've written something, I love rewriting it. I'll rewrite it 20, 30 times. And it feels, I just get in a zone and love that process. I don't like composing the first draft, that's really hard. But I like polishing. And I like feeling that each book that I've written is better than the last one, and that there's no age limit on what I can do, but I can do what I'm doing forever. So, as long as people buy my books.
That's a great point. There's no ageism for entrepreneurs. Great. Sharon, what keeps you going? What keeps you passionate?
Yeah, I do get excited every day because there's just so many challenges. Aside from the satisfaction of seeing how wonderful the kids are developing and knowing how happy the parents are, the excitement just of building the staff, building the team. We're 40 people now, and we have goals, and being able to reach the next milestone and all the intermediate steps to getting to those big goals is what keeps us excited.
That's great. Larry, how do you stay excited?
Sure. Several things come to mind. Number one is solving our clients' problems. We think we do it in innovative ways, but there's a lot of positive feedback from that. Seeing the company grow. We started out in this little basement office with one window in the whole office, and now we're on the second floor, or the third floor of another building, right? So you take those little milestones. And the third is we've been fortunate to really hire some talented young people. And there's nothing like having a bunch of 25-year-olds to keep you motivated every day and excited to come to work, because they're excited about being at work.
Fantastic. Susan, how do you keep it exciting?
So I don't think for me it's not the question about how to keep it exciting. For me it's about how to play the long game. And what I mean by that is that it's really about recognizing that I'm not just trying to stay alive to get to this year's plan. I'm in it for the long run. So what I'm really learning, and I'm hearing from a lot of my mentors and my board advisors, is literally, I have to exercise, I have to take excellent care of myself, I have to eat well, because I'm in it for the long game. And by the way, I'm speaking a little slower right now than I normally do. I do get very excited naturally, that is my normal state. So for me, it is much more about being almost more zen and being very centered, because I come across a lot better to our channel partners, my employees, and my investors when I'm really calm. Because it doesn't matter what's going on in my business, we got very high highs and we got very low lows on the same day. And so I just got to keep it even. And so I feel like that's really what I wanted to focus on, playing the long game and the self-care that's really required to be the CEO that can weather all storms.
Fantastic. Let's thank all our panelists.
Questions, you've got to have them, this is the greatest question.
Yes.
Hi, yes, this is for Sally. All the writers want to know, how did you get your first agent?
I went to somebody's book party after I had just lost the job that really depressed me. And I expected it to be, 70 people, maybe I'd know a handful, and there'd be lots of people to talk to. It turned out to be virtually people only from the company that had just bounced me out. So I found one stranger, and she turned out to be the agent, the editor for this friend's book. So I was really ballsy. I said, well, I've started writing a book, but I haven't. Just I said, but I have my idea. I said, I'd like to come and talk to you about it. So I talked to this woman, and she was very enthusiastic. And I said, now, could you suggest some agents for me? So she gave me the name of 2 top agents. And when I had written about 100 pages, I submitted it to those 2 agents. And the first one, they weren't in order, but one person said, no, this is too quaint. This will become dated really fast. The second person said, I loved it, which is, we love different tastes. So and she's still my agent. She's been my agent now for 6 books, and she's a wonderful businesswoman.
It's fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah, I'd like to know, are there any specific social media sites that you use for your business? And if so, which ones worked, which ones didn't, and why?
Does anybody want to handle that? Who uses social media for their business? Everybody? We'll go right down the line. So, yeah.
Well, we're consumer products, so we're huge on Facebook and Instagram, that's my company. And I have found LinkedIn to be incredibly useful to support the story that I'm telling through PR and for fundraising. It's incredibly important.
LinkedIn is really good if you're business to business. Otherwise, I'd say absolutely Instagram and Facebook.
I was just going to say LinkedIn is what we focus on. In fact, our social media presence beyond that is pretty poor. But we're selling to large corporates, and they don't tend to be on Instagram. So looking for companies like ours.
Sharon?
We really haven't done that much. Now we're using Facebook, and maybe that's just education is a little bit slower to adopt social media. A lot of parents don't like pictures of their kids on social media. So yes, I do think it's important in developing that community, because the kind of parents that we get all come through word of mouth. A lot of our referrals.
Any social media in your book, or do the publishers?
No, the publishers don't really understand social media. All they know is that they expect you to be really a whiz at it. So I have 2 Facebook pages. I have my author page, and then I have my regular Sally Koslow page. Everyone wants to be my friend on my regular page, so basically they function the same way. And within Facebook, there are a lot of subgroups. And I'm part of a marketing collective called Tall Poppies. I'm part of, binders this and binders that. There are a lot of them. And I've met a lot of really interesting authors and book lovers who promote other people's books just for the sheer joy of it. So Facebook's been great. I'm on Twitter. I've never really gotten a lot of traction on Twitter because I think I follow too many other writers. And I realized too late that they're just in it to promote their own books. So that's been sort of a washout. And I recently joined Instagram, and I really love it. That's a lot of fun.
Excellent question.
But not LinkedIn. It doesn't do much.
LinkedIn's really business to business.
Hi, my name is Richa. I'm CEO of an early stage company. And my question is, what's some of your advice on recruiting advisors and mentors? I tend to find that as a woman, and especially as a woman of color, people have a tendency not to take me very seriously. So, especially for the women on the panel, what would you suggest?
What kind of business?
I have an e-commerce platform that connects marginalized artists and co-ops all over the world with consumers, and we also work with immigrant and refugee women and queens to make multicultural products.
So my board of advisors has been really critical for me, and it's because I told you guys that I don't have a co-founder. So people really are suspect of a single founder who doesn't have a sounding board. So the other thing is that I just needed bench behind me. You know, it was not that I felt like I needed it, but I needed it from a perception standpoint. So I recruited people that I had previously worked with and for, and they happen to all be guys. And I've got a guy who has run $1 billion wholesale business. Another guy who's built a very strong, built MTV actually, from 10 million to over $1 billion. I have a senior product design engineer with 35 years of product design engineering. You know, I don't do CAD. And I have a finance advisor and repeat CEO advisor, sort of on all HR and just sort of company building things. And I find that really does make a difference. I mean, I show the team in my investor deck, and then I show the advisor slide. And that advisor slide is heavy. So yes, I think it makes a huge difference. And it's taken me time to build it.
Thank you very much for coming. And remember, eBay has an accelerator program, and I said I would plug it. So please remember, if you know someone in fashion tech, they're going to be accepting people in the spring. If you are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and you need motivation, you can also come and see me and Tony and our team. And in November, we'll have an event actually particularly on funding and raising money. So thank you very much.